Quick favor, drop your location and your local time in the comments, then settle in, because he stands on his back porch with coffee steaming in a creek. He can read like sheet music, the same creek. His grandfather tuned by hand with granite and common sense. The same creek an HOA president will try to turn into a concrete gutter because she once posed by a cul-de-sac fountain and called it hydrology. He breathes mountain air laced with motor oil from the workshop, his happy perfume, and squints at Cottonwood Creek sliding past Willows, a retired Army Corps hydrologist who keeps a surveyor's rod the way other folks keep golf clubs. Jokes aside, the rod wins more arguments, and so does the notebook, where he alphabetizes wrenches, labels, extension cords, and writes left-hand threads, are not a personality test. Willowbrook Estates sprouts around him like designer toadstools, after rain million-dollar colonials craning for a water view, and with them comes Brenda Hartwell in a white Tesla pearl earrings and the kind of smile that looks like it pays monthly dues. She drops a violation for unsightly automotive parts, which is rich because a 72 Sportster carburetor is art modern museums would charge admission, yet he plays it cool, reminding her his parcel predates their covenants by 8 decades and includes recorded water rights older than anyone's mortgage. Her office smells like vanilla candles and a court-ordered apology. And when he politely cites easements and grandfathering, she suggests he might be happier elsewhere, which is realtor for begone, wrench wizard. He laughs once lightly because moving might be cheaper than arguing, but about as likely as his Harley switching to oat milk. Here's the quirky tidbit: Roman builders mixed volcanic ash with lime and seawater to make concrete that grows stronger in waves. Historians still argue whether that recipe was lucky accident or obsessive temple bookkeeping, but even Rome would have blushed at pouring gray slurry into a live trout nursery. Then the emergency meeting appears, mailed to an address he hasn't used since flip phones, agenda reading flood mitigation, while the subtext reads personal vendetta. He and his wife are gone 2 days, and he doesn't trust coincidences that arrive with clipboards, so he drives through the night, jokes with the dashboard that coffee is a food group, and counts mixer trucks in his dreams. Dawn breaks, and the sound that greets him isn't birdsong, but the dental drill snarl of jackhammers. He rounds the bend, and there it is, the creek caged in a low concrete trough, boulders buried banks, shaved raw water forced to march single file like it forgot how to dance a trench so blunt it could qualify as a personality test. Martha's hand finds his, and the absurd part is he checks slope and velocity before anger even lands, the way pilots scan gauges before asking who did this. And somewhere a trout flips a tiny fin like a protest sign, while a foreman shrugs that the consultant cleared it, which must be true because the man arrived with a tape measure and confidence. He photographs every angle, bottles samples, logs times, dates, flow rates. Engineers cope like this and tells the foreman permits don't grow on clipboards. They grow in county files. The man laughs, then coughs, then stops laughing when he hears Clean Water Act 3 words that turn bravado into paperwork, and the creek, though muted, keeps a beat he intends to restore. He starts the clock like a field scientist with a joking side hustle in paperwork, photographing the trench at sunup, logging turbidity at noon, checking velocity at dusk with a meter that beeps like a microwave announcing regret. The spreadsheet grows so many tabs it threatens to form a union, and his camera roll looks like a fashion shoot for miserable water. He files with County Water State Environment, and the regional EPA office then rings Trout Unlimited, where a volunteer whistles low and says they've got lawyers who fish and fishers who lawyer. Either way, someone's tying legal flies. Neighbors drift over in 2s and 3s, reading the consultant's sign like it's a magic ward. He explains permits don't sprout from clipboards. They live in government drawers, and you need keys, stamps, and patience, not just a white hard hat and more cologne than sense. The jokes keep him steady. He calls the flow meter the world's angriest kazoo, swears. His calculator sighs before big sums, and tells the mail carrier he's building a scrapbook titled Concrete Now with Feelings. Yet the data he's stacking is a blade, and each number shaves excuse from claim. Quirky tidbit. He salvages last year's Christmas trees, neighbors too, and lashes them along the scar as temporary riffle makers, a trick old river crews still swear by. It looks odd, but trout adore weird architecture, and historians still argue whether the first canal builders were farmers with shovels or over-caffeinated priests with clipboards. Meanwhile, he cross-checks every consultant invoice against the contractor registry and finds the expert is Brenda's cousin, a landscaper, whose resume lists decorative gravel fluency and pond vibes, which is adorable until you're redesigning a watershed. He pairs that with bid sheets showing Pinnacle's emergency premiums and the HOA's special assessment trail, and the numbers hum a tune only prosecutors dance to. His old core buddy at the Colorado Water Authority squints at the photos, then the dates, then laughs the kind of laugh that buys more printer ink, because the entire nuisance complaint leaned on watershed maps older than half the homeowner's vinyl siding. Grandfather's notebook opens like a lighthouse. 1973 hand-drawn hydrographs, snowmelt curves, soil absorption tables, and a margin note that says, "Do not confine. Spread slow sink." He overlays those pages on fresh topo, then feeds both into a simple model that still runs on a dust-tinted laptop. No glossy brochure filter, just physics, and the plots jump like a heart monitor on espresso, every arrow aimed at the million-dollar basements Brenda photographs with wide-angle pride. He writes a plain English memo, no hydraulic, supercritical laminar monsoon fluff. Just the concrete converts a meandering sponge into a pressurized hose velocity. Spikes undermine footings, and the only thing it protects is ignorance. 3 light jokes to soften the dread. He tells the robotics kid his stream gauge is not a sushi summoner, labels a box, empathy for culverts, and names the worst Eddie Brenda's loop because it goes in circles and costs money, but the thesis is stone, the channel isn't safety, it's a time bomb in a white Tesla. He takes the story public as a teach-in, not a grudge. Evening cookout by the shop, maps pinned with magnets, cocoa in a dented kettle, and a quick demo showing how willow cuttings root like green patience. People arrive angry and leave organized. The retired judge brings cookies and precedents. The high school robotics kids promise cheap sensors because, as one says, if it blinks, it belongs to us. And the quilting circle offers to stitch sandbag sleeves, craft meets craft. He posts nightly updates that read like river diary entries, and agencies begin moving from polite emails to site visits with measuring tapes, and that particular silence officials use when they've found something they can't unsee. Historians still argue whether medieval flood marks were warnings or bragging rights, but his chalk lines on garage studs are definitely warnings. Here is what spring will do if we pretend concrete can bully a valley. The neighbors see the arrows and stop speaking in rumors. They start speaking in affidavits, and the creek, though bruised, keeps tapping the same patient rhythm. Prove it, fix it, let me breathe. Her restraining order gambit arcs back like a paper boomerang because he walks into federal court with maps, flow logs, and the kind of quiet that makes microphones lean closer. Brenda arrives with affidavits and a look that says the weather owes her rent. The judge listens brows level as a spirit level, while experts translate velocity into plain English, remember the world's angriest kazoo, and then the gallery's phones start pinging in chorus because outside Cottonwood Creek is auditioning for a news helicopter. Sirens climb the boulevard, a bailiff whispers to the clerk, and the live stream shows the concrete trench acting like a fire hose aimed at $1 million row. It's the exact plot twist his grandfather's graphs foretold, only with better lighting and worse decisions. He keeps it simple on the stand. The natural channel spread slowed and sank. The concrete narrows speeds and scours. One protects foundations, the other chews them. He even jokes that the creek now thinks it's a water park slide fund for exactly 6 seconds, and a juror snorts into a sleeve. Quirky tidbit Victorians once built the Tempest Prognosticator, a storm alarm powered by leeches ringing tiny bells. Historians still argue whether it was science or glorious theater, but either way, today's storm rings its own bell. Brenda claims eco-sabotage suggests the trout are on Wi-Fi, and the judge calls a recess long enough for reality to file an amicus brief. When they reconvene, the order lands, crisp as mountain air: cease and desist emergency pumps for flooded basements, immediate site control, and removal of every illegal slab on a schedule measured in days, not months. Damages and fees will follow. Also, the affidavits about his terroristic surveying vanish under the weight of her recorded threats, which play like a cautionary podcast nobody asked to subscribe to. He allows himself one small joke to Martha: we should frame that transcript next to the carburetor, but only after the gavel. He steps into cameras and wet wind not as a conquering hero, but as the project manager of a better story, and the better story begins immediately. Neighbors stack sandbags with quilting circle sleeves, robotics, kids deploy sensors that blink like tiny lighthouses, trout, unlimited drags willow bundles, while the mail carrier hands out donuts because even emergencies respect carbohydrate science. The angry kazoo retires with honors. Brenda's loop gets labeled on a teaching map. Here's where money went in circles, and the Christmas trees he salvaged earlier are repurposed as riffles with a sign that reads gently, "Please do not decorate the habitat." Weeks fold into hearings, hearings fold into grants, and grants become the Cottonwood Creek Redemption Project. Students plant willows, veterans explain bridges hold because people do, and the State House notices legislation scrolls faster when basements squish. The rules tighten real permits for real rivers environmental review before any HOA touches a waterway, and a bright line nod to rights that were humming along before cul-de-sacs learned to speak. Historians still argue whether the Dutch turpin mounds grew from folk trial and error or central planning, but everyone agrees a healthy floodplain beats a panicked sump pump. When excavators finally lift the last slab, the creek inhales, narrowing here, widening there, remembering how to meander. And he stands with Martha in the dusk, motor oil hoodie against her shoulder, listening to water say the line it always says when people stop shouting at it: "Let me find my path and I'll carry you home." He grins. That justice sounds like running water and also like a carburetor tuned by someone who reads footnotes. Then softer, he thanks the old man's pencil marks for surviving every meeting, every rumor, every white Tesla shortcut. The cameras catch the smile he tries to hide, the one that looks exactly like relief, finally remembering how to breathe. The valley exhales with him. Not all at once, but the way a tired room cools after people stop arguing. A window slides open, a curtain lifts, and the evening air smooths the edges soft as felt. Softer still where willow leaves tremble, like little green metronomes keeping time for a quieter song. The creek's voice lowers to its old register pebbles, clicking a cattail, brushing another cattail like a whispered apology, and he lets his shoulders fall until their story fits the night. Not the headline, just the steady pulse of water finding room to turn without anyone telling it to. He walks the bank slowly, no camera, no clipboard boots, feeling for the familiar hollows. A moth tapping his sleeve like it's double-checking the map, Martha's hand warm where the motor oil hoodie gathers at her wrist, both of them counting breaths instead of court dates. In the distance, a porch light snaps on. Another snaps off, and the town seems to remember how to be a neighborhood, one quiet switch at a time. One easy promise. We'll look out for you. You look out for us the way fences were meant to speak before they started shouting. He imagines his grandfather sitting on that old folding chair, pencil laid across a knee, nodding at the bend that now curves a little kinder. The silt catching where the trout like their cradle, and he smiles because nothing dramatic has to happen anymore. No sirens, no affidavits, only the kind of work that keeps lasting roots, thickening, kids learning which stones not to move, a sign that doesn't need capital letters to be heard. So he stands there long enough for the water to carry his reflection a few steps downstream, long enough for the stars to stitch their slow grid above the black line of the ridge, and he lets the last sharp thought drift out with the cool, steady current until it's only the hush of a creek in the dark and the soft syllable of home.